I realized that there was something I had not discussed in quite a bit of time. And it was something that it just hit me. I was like, oh yeah, well, because of the whole, no coercion, no deceit. And then, oh yeah, that's so normal to me. I forget about that part of the story with MAGA. MAGA doesn't exist without the period of time of the young male vote that has turned toward MAGA, like so many young men in movements of nationalism and all the things that the women find frightening because they don't understand such ideas. And really, they don't. It's been a slow crawl. And one of the ones that, one of these ideas is what Naomi Wolf finally figured out after years and years and years and years and years of it becoming kind of the new dance that none of the ladies could figure out the steps of. They would look at it from afar, and that was libertarianism. Even though it was something that was championed, or the champions of it always champion Ayn Rand, a woman, for trying to model it in a way that through artwork, so that rather than the party art that you see so much in the United States, and then increasingly so right now, you see that party art, that socialist party, no matter how people want to put it, it's best put that way. Socialist party art, or whatever this party is on the left, it's all gay and DEI and oh, it's about the black women. Where's a black woman? There's a black woman who will do anything sexually with anyone, and you can't. She needs to be liberated. Give her a pole. Give her a pole and a budget. She needs to be liberated. And a website with a webcam. She needs to be liberated. Liberate these minority women by making them whores. Yeah, Donovan's been having a little something to drink. Thought I would just walk around after having something to drink, wondering what that was like. This isn't actually terribly unpleasant because I made sure to water it down on ice. But I am stumbling a little in a way that's a little sloppy looking. But I'm old, so that's okay. So here is that area I was showing you guys before, along that bike path that I like to walk. Well, this is now the new thing where they've taken down the wall of the slough, and they're going to be doing it. And I mean, this is really going to be awesome. I'm very excited about this. So, this is, of course, the day that I was there at lunch. And at lunch, Biden announced that he was going to be stepping down. And now, credit is due at this point to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk had the solid drop. Whoever Charlie Kirk's source was, they had it dialed in, because there was a variety of claims of what was going to be happening today. But that's Charlie Kirk now has made it. He's a made man. He has sources now that are absolutely solid. So Charlie Kirk called it. He called Biden stepping aside rather than down from the presidency. And now it's whether it will be a brokered convention or not. That's the big thing that's going to be fascinating to see. It's going to be so sweet. And, all right. Oh, the Emerald Club. Wait, no. It's baseball. No. Wait, is it? Oh, well. I don't care, actually, that much. So the no coercion, no deceit thing with MAGA was exceedingly important and was totally ignored. Nobody took seriously this idea that the libertarians had left their mark. And so people like Nicholas Fuentes, remember, Nicholas Fuentes really doesn't like libertarians. I mean, he even embraced it and found it lacking. The thing is that Nicholas Fuentes is, of course, not the hard right person that can actually deliver on hard right action. He can only deliver on the end of it that is sort of cultural appeal of sorts, and mostly through people being, really discontented. He doesn't appeal to men because of his masculinity, and that's more of an Andrew Tate thing. And there are a lot of various male Christian channels and like kind of these men who are sort of archetype men of a sort. It's not really good to put, because it's really an idea of kind of a mentor, somebody that young men can say, well, yeah, I see it. I've seen what this looks like. A person who is happy. He's the kind of man men want to be. And so the libertarians posited something that was really a thing that the alternative right even had a problem with. But then also there were many people, because the alternative right was exceedingly adaptive. Richard Spencer sponsoring so many different types of people speaking and having a voice, not just in that blog, but then in connected blogs to it. That you very quickly ran into people who had just very, very, just a wide, variegated field of views. And so, and then also specific knowledge. They were all, many of these people were very, very good at applying any kind of theoretical model to something that they could say from a specific field of knowledge. And they could kind of give you an allegory for it that was, concise and that, dialed it in. So the libertarians, and especially one in particular who's an anarcho-capitalist, Stefan Molyneux, pointed out, like, at some stage you have to concede that, and he would whittle people down with lots of different kinds of, modes of argumentation, and he was very honest about it. That's what the appeal was, because he at some point was like, at some point we'll get to the truth, because otherwise you're being deceitful, and then it doesn't matter. And because this is a debate that there's no real way for you to coerce me, and there was all kinds of various styles of argumentative techniques and things that people would use, that we were able to spot on the right, ways of coercing people that you were shocked, like how subtle this was. Little things of body language or the way of speaking to get the person to it seemingly agree. And then it's like, well, no, but I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I don't necessarily agree. I'm just nodding that I understand what you mean. And then comes the fascinating attack upon, you're going to, and then, because you're being a bad player. This isn't fair play. You're doing this, you're doing that. So it's like, now I'm going to tell everybody how you're actually dishonest in your debates. Such like fascinating ways that you found people would use sort of coercion through dragging your name through the mud. Other things of discussing a subject in a way that was coarse, so that you could then appeal to moderators from the website that, look, this language is so coarse. Can you believe this? Doesn't this violate your terms of service? Person would suddenly, oh no, something happened to your channel. You shouldn't use such coarse language when you're talking to people who you disagree with. And it actually turns out like the person who is defending no coercion, no deceit, it's the libertarian, the anarcho-capitalist. They had never used that language. That was something, that had been brought into it by some means, by some sneaky means, So it became more and more fascinating to see as the years developed, all these ways of getting people thrown off of platforms, and that it became this sort of fascinating pattern that anyone even remotely to the right, by the general interpretation of the left of the time, were the people who tended to lose this fight for the platform, even though often these were that there was nothing to it. There was nothing to it at all. It was something that had been ginned up by a bunch of leftards, and so what no coercion and no deceit then kind of ended up this thing of like, well, no, we don't do that, and now there's ways that it's evolved, so that people are like, oh, you're doing this argumentative fallacy, you're doing, and the right's gotten so good at this now, it violates the kung fu. It violates the principles of the right wing's kung fu now, to engage in some kind of like way of coercion and deceit, because they realize like you're either being fake and gay, or if you're just coercive, then that you don't win. It wasn't winning, you just got coercive, which there is an issue that's come up even with the left recently in arguing sort of this realm of the theories. Even now the left is starting to have a really hard time figuring out how their thinking doesn't justify violence. And they really are having, like a lot of them are just like, no, it's obviously justified in the way we think. Like, they're trying to figure out a way of like making it not sound the way I just put it. Yeah, of course, according to our kind of school of thought and like our kind of morality, violence is of course allowed. We don't really have a set of moral principles. So one of the key things that everybody would then cast aside about the libertarians in particular is the no coercion, no deceit. So the only thing that somebody could then kind of say is, well, the way you posit it is everyone has a price. That every issue is just a matter of haggling. And so, this has been, the libertarians and a lot of other people started to argue this out. This is like 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, this guy Donald Trump gets involved in the race. By this time, this argument has so changed the young new right that it completely, one of the key things was the evangelicals, the reactionary Catholics, the Orthodox, then even conservative Jews who are starting to get more and more involved in the right, they started to sit there and go, yeah, actually, if we're correct, and this, there's these things that we have to do legislatively, but no matter what, we would have had to do them legislatively anyway, so that's just that process. We have to convince people by the numbers. Coercion, that would never... Obviously, by the time 2015 is coming around, Antifa's been attacking people. The right is starting to this guy Gavin McInnes is kind of gathering some guys up called the Proud Boys. They're going to defend, I guess, run security for who knows, whatever. Gavin's kind of an oddball. I get him. I got him at that point. Because I understood the scene that loosely, that he had seen like deep. He was in it deep. He was in the punk scene when it hit New York, when it was like hot, when it hit the whole East Coast, so that he would have been seeing shows in Canada and in New York and stuff like that. And so I'm getting what he's in a way, the way he's seeing it, that he's seeing it from the types of groups of male subculture he had experienced, hence the way that the Proud Boys dress with Fred Perry's. That would have been a certain subculture of his youth on the East Coast during those days of his youth, and is a look that of that type. So there was that, and I'm like, oh, okay. But the thing is, by this time I had become quite convinced. Okay, no, there's something bigger going on. I'm experiencing it personally. So I was like, okay, I have to actually kind of have a bit of faith. Gotta believe in a miracle. This is where the person who is the critic of the right in any way, they would say the only way they would have stepped back is stand down. The only way they would have just kind of let things go and see what happened is fundamentally a faith in your countryman. This is a key difference, and that was the whole thing. The Libertarians unlocked through their concept of first principles. No coercion, no deceit. And there's other principles that follow that. Fundamental philosophical principles, but no coercion, no deceit really covers a wide field from the beginning. And one of the key things that you start to get is that it's like, no, this actually always ends up, because what would be instead of the deceit, you have veritas. Instead of coercion, you have pax. None of these are bad things. The nadir of these, so nobody knew that how big of a deal no coercion, no deceit was in the development of the MAGA movement that the Libertarians introduced. But like, if you guys are right, you're right. You have accuracy on your side. If your figures are right about these government programs, and if your figures are right about what these people get paid, and these are the results of these programs, then you got it. That's it. The math shows that this obviously it should be done in a different way because these people don't fucking do it right. But if they do, then they do. And that's actually a good government program, and it's money well spent, period. It's we got an easy peasy lemon squeezy here. And so this ends up becoming like this fascinating process by which people are arguing out what of the federal state, why, because then there's the people who they were like, this is mammon, it's the Leviathan, it'll devour us. sending us into the pit, you know. And it's like, wait. Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? Precisely, what do you have a problem with? And then one of the wonderful statements by somebody in the public sphere who does things is when Scott Adams pointed out, I'm an engineer. If what you're asking me is to solve a problem, you have to give me the parameters that I'm working with it. What's the problem? You know, what I need metrics. I need something that I can measure. Otherwise, I cannot begin to even begin the process of solving the problem. And it was a great way he put it, you know, because he's like, for an engineer, that's the mindset. And he goes, you know, too often people think politicians are engineers. If you give them the numbers, then they'll be able to solve the problem because they're a numbers person. You know, they'll just figure out how to do this and tweak that. And it's no. With politicians, it's entirely, no, this is an art form. It's an entirely different field. You know, the numbers don't really matter, in fact. And so numbers are pretty, you know, in the right color, you know, depending on their size and style, you know, it's, and the font, you know, and so, no coercion, no deceit made people like Nick Fuentes have to defend things that eventually he's like, fuck that shit. You libertarians are lames and busters, and I'm going to be gangster about it and coerce people. At some point, I'm going to figure out how to get into a position. I go whoop people's asses if they say no. Which is good and honest in a way. You know, good luck with it. I mean, you know, that he'll have an army of Catholic reactionaries who will carry out his orders, I guess, or something. I guess that's the idea. But really, I don't want to even put necessarily words in his mouth. I just kind of, it comes across in that way. Like, people react to him. There's people who, they're hard fucking woods who will hear Nick Fuentes, and they're like, wait a second, homie. I think I know what you're talking about here. They're not about Nick Fuentes. And it's not my business. I'm not, you know, it's, my whole thing is, I'm like, well, no, you're Catholic. There's a lot of people who do not feel they are governed in any way, shape, or form by the Bishop of Rome or Archbishop of Rome. You know, it's, you know, I'm sorry, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, it's, you're going to have to speak to that group and their interests, which are multinational, and that this idea of taking on nationalism as the future for various Catholic nations and what's good in the national interests of those countries is fundamentally good. Like, because what this would mean is that would mean that national patriotism is inherently a thing that is good. That would be a capital G. There would be then a theological argument about nationalism and national interests. And of course there would be, and that's the thing, it starts the argumentation. That's the most important part. Like discovery and lawsuits. It's the work. It's always the work. So, and there's always a word for the work. So, the Orthodox have worked this out to some degree, that even Jay Dyer had to point out, so no, the modern concept of nationalism is acceptable to Orthodox, but the way people tend to be ruled is by rulers, and you want the ruler to be Orthodox, ideally, you know, and you want, yeah, there's a historical model of what is good. And so, there's the good czars, and such like. And so it's, and good emperors and good kings. And so that's the way they see it. That's the way that they're like, that is actually the natural order of things. And the concept of the republic is really a deviation from the natural order of things, but it's, it is what it is. It's, so, I think that's also something that people don't really get. I think a lot of people who are on the left who think they understand something about Christianity, they really don't understand that about the Orthodox versus, the Catholics and the Orthodox. That actually it's only a portion of the Protestants who have a theology that they could argue it's inherently good, that a concept of the democratic, limited constitutional democratic republic or something like that, or what Britain has is inherently good with a capital G. So, trying to round this out a little in my thoughts. This lack of understanding, we're not going to coerce you, and we're certainly not lying to you. And that's the part that really galls them. There we go. There we go. What galls them is that, especially there's a person who in particular has been good at this, has been Mr. Kirk again. Charlie Kirk has been very good at pointing out, I'm not lying to you. I'm not saying this so that I can be inflammatory. I am saying what is the actual accurate information about this, and saying it the way I want to. And the truth, or maybe the way I'm putting the truth, is what really upsets you. And that galls them. Because that's straight for the intelligence. You didn't know that factual issue. You didn't know that thing that happened in the real world at some time, to witnessed or not witnessed by somebody that you have enough evidence for that you can cite it. And a person could say, oh, well, this, that, and the other about your fact. The thing is, though, it shows a lot when people get extremely upset about a fact. It says a lot. And everybody knows that. And the left understands that the right is actually, the present right wing is very, very good at spotting that. Gotcha. They know that meme. Gotcha. And there's no way back from that kind of ownage, as the saying goes. Honage and ownage. And over and over and over and over again. And then when you have somebody who, they specialize in such quips, in such fancy and fast understanding of just how to house a motherfucker on social media, and it just is utterly debilitating to their sense of, but I'm smarter than you. Big part of this coming from a misunderstanding of what is known about IQ, by whom, what demographics, and by what age, and such like. But I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, don't want to pass by that. That is double extra desperation, ex-convict looking style-y. All right, gonna take a longer route. Oh, so much bummage in Oregon. I mean, just bums just kicking it in an alleyway, just asking people for things, But anyway, so without understanding the import that the libertarians had, that this ends up becoming this argument. They're still going at it. The right wing and the libertarians are still having this back and forth, because the Mises Caucus, these people with praxeology, they're actually much more what would be considered right of center. They tend to be more right of center because they're much more about the dry figures. What does the data say? Where should I live because it's in a safe place, and what's the pattern that tells me it's safe rather than dangerous? What's the pattern recognition? Because you see, the noticing will continue. Pepe is noticing, and by the power of Keck, I am noticing. So the Mises Caucus people, they're the more right wing end, and so so the Libertarians as a party, they're always dealing with having, spookies and glowies, and influence from lefties, from people who really they're trying to figure out how to make libertarian socialism. It's really weird. But then beyond that, you end up with this very, very interesting issue. What the fuck is happening? Are they hanging out where I live? God damn it. God damn it. These goddamn freaks that live on the first floor. always these fucking freakazoids move into the first floor, and then these fucking urchins come along. All look like ex-cons. All walk around like they're fucking, it's like, yo, you need to stop it. This is not LA. Anyway, I was just thinking about how, without understanding that and the influence, because then it became a miracle. I'm waiting on a miracle, and what ends up happening, we get them. Over and over again, things that we just can't even believe. How did that happen? And it was like a miracle. And that's the weirdest. See, that's the part I can't explain to people on the left. I wasn't into it. And I got into it because after a while, I was sitting there going, I can't explain what just happened. I can't believe what just happened, but I'm seeing it with my very eyes, and I can't explain it. And there's not really a way back when you're like, I can't explain that, because there's something else going on then. Yeah. So good luck with however you're trying to manage that issue. Boy, oh boy, does it look like heaven is not on your man's side. Maybe he'll be kinder to Kamala.